to record the meeting. Thank you. And welcome for the Manual for Teachers from A Course in Miracles. This group meets every Thursday, and we just finished last week this section of how can the difficulty of order of miracles be avoided, or I can't remember the exact wording of the title, but we did finish that. It took us 2 weeks to get through that one. But this week we are going to move on to, let me see, where am I? Well, I'm looking for our text. I'm not sure where it is. Hang on. I will find it. So what did I do here? Okay. Maybe I closed it. I might have closed it. That would be about my speed there too. No, there it is.
Grace, you look nice and comfortable.
All right, there we go. Hey, Grace. Hi, my angel. Your microphone is turned off. So if you want to speak, you must turn your microphone on. All right, here we go. And let me do the other thing I need to do. Get rid of that and grab the microphone. And I just realized I need to go in the other room and do something else. So what I'm going to do here is, since I did all this action since I started the recording, I'm going to, it's fine. All right. All righty. So can everybody see the text on the board?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, I am going to ask someone to read, and I'm going to run in the other room and turn off a recording that is recording. And so who would like to read the first paragraph?
I can read the first paragraph.
Okay, very good. All right. Go right ahead, and I will be right back.
Are changes required in the life situation of God's teachers? Changes are required in the minds of God teachers. This may or may not involve changes in the external situation. Remember that no one is where he is by accident, and chance plays no part in God's plan. It is most unlikely that changes in his attitudes within his current situation would not be the first step in the newly made teacher of God's training. There is, however, no set pattern, since training is always highly individualized. There are those who are called upon to change their life situation almost immediately, but these are generally special cases. By far, the majority are given a slowly evolving training program in which as many previous perceptual mistakes as possible are corrected. Relationships in particular must be properly perceived, and all dark cornerstones of unforgiveness removed. Otherwise, the old thought system still has a basis for return. Well, they're not kidding when the changes are required of our minds. And to me, it's a big overhaul, a totally different way of being in relationship. And my whole thought system is switched from one of guilt to forgiveness, and specialness to love, or to holy relationships. So that's what I get out of this paragraph.
Thank you, Dee. Thank you for reading. And yeah, does anybody else have anything that you have you experienced this? I'm looking at today's lesson, which is 154. I'm among the ministers of God. And he's talking to us about what it is to be a minister of God. And since you are, has anything changed? Or, you know, if you want to, anybody have any comments? And I can't see if you put your hand up, so just go ahead and speak up.
I would say everything has changed for me. Nothing hasn't. Everything has, and everything has in a very good direction. Takes a complete overhaul of our minds, is the way I look at it. Of all my wrong, all my wrong old training has been overhauled into a new way of thinking and seeing.
Yeah, I would say that's for me as well. My life is so completely different. I mean, when I first found A Course in Miracles, I was a professional. You know, I worked for big companies. I, you know, traveled and did, you know, audits and things all over the world. I had all sorts of things going on, and it didn't change because it had to change, but because I changed. I became less tolerant of inequality. I started seeing a lot of the things that, you know, my company was doing and I was doing that was not not helpful for our employees or, you know, the world or whatever. But then I started seeing. I became more and more and more and more judgmental, even though I was studying a course in giving up judgment. It seemed like my judgments became harsher and harsher and harsher. Um, and I couldn't stand it was like a cognitive dissonance in my mind. You know, I was reading about peace and trying to learn how to be, you know, a better peaceful person. And then I was beginning to see how my outer life wasn't reflecting that in any way at all. And so when I started trying to change my outer life to reflect more what my inner life, what I wanted to be, I became a lot less tolerant and of uh, things that were happening in my job. And you know, basically I really became a bitch about a lot of stuff. And and you know, once I recognized that that was what was happening, and I decided that I wanted to just give up all that judgment, I lost my job, and I got fired from 3 different jobs because I didn't know how to act. I didn't know how to be a part of this big, you know, crazy corporation in a management position where, you know, I had to do things that didn't reflect my values. And, you know, I just became crazier and crazier and they fired me, and like, having worked my whole life with never a problem, and to get fired from 3 jobs in a row was like, I don't even know what I'm going to do now. And when I finally found Dove and A Course in Miracles, I was working a temporary job with, you know, it was a temporary job. And, you know, I reached out to Dove, and you know, David Fishman, and he helped me out with a lot of my thinking. And I went back to work for about 2 months during this time, and I haven't worked since. And that's been that's been a long time. But yeah, my life changed completely because I couldn't be the person I was before, and I couldn't live both lives.
Well, if I could interject, I was smiling because I'm in that place now. I've had a career for 30 years, and the past 6 years, I've had so much changeover, and it's gotten to the point where I can't tolerate either. And it's scary when you at first are thinking, oh my goodness, what else do I do? So I did most recently just start A Course in Miracles, and then with a weekly group. And just last night, I went on to Meetup and did a search to sign up for a lot more because I realized I really needed this in my life and to study it deeper, because I was realizing that things are changing. I can't go back to where I was before. And so I'm trying to find a path. So that's why I was smiling. I know exactly what you're talking about, and that's where I'm at now.
I just want to ask, what is it that you can't tolerate?
I've become very judgmental, yeah. And there's a lot of division in the world right now, and I've seen a lot of it. I work in an office, and recently I've been working in small offices where people are very vocal about their thoughts on racism and the political environment, and some of it is very personal now. I'm a mixed race person, you know, so a lot of it I am taking very personally. So I'm having to learn with the course to detach.
Yeah, but as long as you take it personally, you're always going to be a victim. I mean,
Right.
can you see that, or you want to go deeper than that?
I can see where I'm taking it personally, but it's hard to ignore. Yeah, I'm very new to all of this, so I know I'm not going to just switch on a dime and go, oh, well, they're referring to my Black grandfather, I'll just ignore it. It's not, you know, it's just a story.
Now, the courses says you can't change the world at all. So you can spend the next 1,000 years trying to change things. It'll never work. Do you understand that?
I do understand that, but I also, in the few months that I have done a course, I have noticed that by changing my thoughts inwardly, outwardly, I'm seeing things differently. Different things are coming to me.
Well, that's right. Don't look to change the world, look to change your mind about the world.
Exactly.
I'm not going to ask you what is it that you're saying differently, but that's the only way out of being a victim to the world for the rest of your life and the next 10 lifetimes.
Mm-hmm. I realize that.
Well, okay, that is what the course is about.
That's why I'm here, right?
Okay. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Oh, I want to say that I went in the exact opposite direction. Before the course, I was a fighter. It's like I just saw everything is unfair, and I had to fight a cause. And since the course, I mean, I think my judgment, I think I was more judgmental. I know I was more judgmental before the course, fighting for every injustice that I saw, and trying to make it right. And the fight is out of me. It's just so much more peaceful now. And knowing that the peace is within my own mind, not out there. That's not where I'm going to find it in changing the world.
I think that the common ingredient here is it's not that others are being treated unequally. I feel that I'm being treated unequally. And you always have to bring it back to yourself. And it's easy to say, well, I have friends and, you know, and they are definitely being treated unequally. But if you see it in your friends, you're talking about yourself. This is the one thing you have to begin to understand. You're always speaking about yourself. It looks like you're speaking about somebody out there. It looks like it. That's part of the trick. That's part of how the ego tricks the mind. Well, I know people, and you come up with a whole story. No, I'm always speaking about myself. And what is it that I feel? I feel I'm not equal, period. I feel that I'm unfairly treated. And who is doing that to me? Does anyone know the answer? Who is not treating me fairly?
Me, myself, and I.
What?
Me, myself, and I.
Not really. No, no. We are beating ourselves up. Yeah, but who is it that I don't see that I'm equal to?
God.
God. Yes. Was that you, Regis?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. God. I mean, we think that God doesn't love us. He dropped us off on this God-forsaken planet where everything is like hell. I mean, what is hell but a place where there's no hope? But he tells you, you never left heaven. When am I going to be willing to remember the truth of what I am? The truth of what I am is I am as God is. But I'm blaming God because obviously it's so easy in this world to blame God, especially in 2021, especially. But I guess 2,500 years ago, when Lao Tzu wrote the Tao Te Ching, he said at that time, that's 500 years before Jesus, everything was corrupt then. The world is corrupt. There's no two ways that you'll never change the world. You can only say, what is this world for? Ask, what is it for? And the simple answer is, it's a classroom where you come to learn lessons. I'm not learning somebody else's lessons. I have to learn my own lessons. And everyone has their own lessons. All right, I'll turn the mic back to you, Lynn.
Thank you, Dov. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, looking at sentence 7 or sentence 8 of this paragraph, he says, relationships in particular must be properly perceived and all dark cornerstones of unforgiveness removed. Otherwise, the old thought system still has a basis for return. So really, it is looking at our relationships and looking at, you know, Dee, like you, I was a fighter too. You know, I still am, actually. You know, but what I realize is that because I feel somehow like I'm responsible for everything that happens in the world, then I feel really guilty for not fixing everything that's broken. And, you know, I feel guilty that, you know, the environment's getting screwed up. And I feel guilty that, you know, children are hungry. And I feel guilty that, you know, disease is rampant. And I feel personally responsible for those things. And I always have felt that way. And I think other people do too, because I see whenever they're given an opportunity to save the children or, you know, help the homeless or whatever, you know, people want to do things to be helpful because they feel responsible for other people's lives or other people's problems. And, you know, that's why, I'm worried about people not being able to vote in Georgia and all that kind of stuff. But like Dov said, it really is this belief that, you know, God, why did you put me here to have to fight all these battles? You know, why didn't, you know, when you asked me to help you save the world, you know, why didn't you tell me how to do it rather than just leave me here to, you know, wander around trying to fix everything that I see broken? But those are all the dark cornerstones of unforgiveness in my mind that are looking for who did this finding whose fault it is and, you know, punishing them or making them undo it or change it. You know, this is how silly we are with the world. But it is that unforgiveness that is holding it in place. And he says, if you don't get rid of that, completely root it out and no longer have it, it might come back. It says, otherwise, the old thought system still has a basis for return. You have to completely reject that whole idea of victimhood, and not just, you know, my victimhood, but the victimhood of everyone who I see as being unfairly treated. I have to move out of that kind of thinking, or else I'll have an excuse to still want to find guilt and punish people, punish the world, punish myself for what I see. Anybody have any other thoughts about this?
Yeah, just basically what you were saying, the old, right after number 8, it says, otherwise the old thought system still has a basis to return. And again, I see that old thought system. I mean, the original thought system is from the original man of, you know, this unforgiveness is when Adam fell, you know, again, God came back to the garden and he was like, what's wrong? Adam was in guilt. They was in shame and God didn't see it. So he was like, what are you talking about? What's wrong? And, you know, I came back to be at one with you, to be in fellowship with you. So man started this old system of being unequal to God, being separated from God, and everything out of that. Eventually, Adam started blaming. I think at one point he said, well, this woman that you left me with, you know, so he starts to blame his wife or whatever she was to him, because it wasn't even a wife concept at that time. But, you know, so we just started this blame game and this guilt and trying to appease God when God is saying there is nothing to forgive. You know, because we start burning calves and sacrificing animals, and God is still saying there is nothing to forgive. We are one. So until we come to that place to where, I'm just going to say it like an old Southern preacher used to say it, till we feel like we are right with God. You know, it's this whole sense of I'm not right with God, you know, and until we get rid of that old thought system, it can show up in any form. We think, like I said about racism this morning, if I'm seeing racism, I'm the racist. You know, most people just don't want to accept that. If I'm seeing a prejudiced person, I'm the prejudiced person. You know, if I'm the one that's seeing differences, because it's nothing but another word for differences. It's just another word for inequality. And how do I heal the world? By healing myself. And we think that's just not good enough. We want to go out, and that's the ego solar system, as I call it, the self-perpetuating solar system, because the ego keeps making us think if I fix this stuff out here, then I'm fixing the problem. But no, if I fix me, I'm fixing the problem. And until we really get that, that's that old thought system that can return, that has a basis to return at any given time in any situation.
Thank you, Regis. Exactly. Anybody else have any comments on paragraph 1? Would anybody like to read paragraph 2? There we go. Sorry, I moved that around.
Can you hear me?
Is that 9.2?
Yeah. Who was?
I'll take a shot at it.
Okay.
Oh,
Who
all right.
else was going to read?
Was that,
Okay.
did
Yeah.
someone else come up?
No, go ahead, Regis. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Regis.
As the teacher of God advances in his training, he learns one lesson with increasing thoroughness. He does not make his own decisions. He asks his teacher for his answer, and it is this he follows as his guide for action. This becomes easier and easier as the teacher of God learns to give up his own judgment. The giving up of judgment, the obvious prerequisite for hearing God's voice, is usually a fairly slow process, not because it is difficult, but because it is apt to be perceived as personally insulting. The world's training is directed toward achieving a goal in direct opposition to that of our curriculum. The world trains for reliance on one's judgment as the criterion for maturity and strength. Our curriculum trains for the relinquishment of judgment as the necessary condition of salvation.
So what do you think about that?
So one thing that stood out to me as I was reading it was just basically what I just said, like, if I'm seeing a racist, I'm the racist. And it, as it said here, it says, but because it is apt to perceive as personally insulting. A lot of people get insulted with the course, with that sense of taking responsibility, and saying, no, the problem is not out there, the problem is in here. You know, the calls are coming from inside the house, you know, inside of our house, our own personal house. And so that curriculum of learning to hear that voice and not be insulted is sort of the faster track. But if we hear these things come up in us and we have to, as I hate that word, y'all know, process it, you know, because I think that's just a cop out to say, well, I'm not ready to move on with that yet. So, but if we have to take this time, as he said, we feel a little insulted, a little, all these things. I remember telling someone years ago, I said, the Holy Spirit told me I was lazy. and so, you know, I'm just the kind of person that can kind of take those things and appreciate them versus being hurt by them or feeling betrayed in some type of way by my own self or by my own voice within me. I see it as helpful, but when we really learn to hear the guide, because the guide is speaking, but when we really learn to let that ego side of us just have a fit and not pay any attention and continue to move forward in the truth, is really the track we want to be on. It's that it's just that, as I said, that the obvious prerequisite for hearing God's voice is usually very slow, but because it is not because it's difficult, but because it is apt to be perceived personally insulting.
Yeah, that, I had to read that a few times really to really understand. I still kind of, I get it. I mean, he's really telling us, I think, that unless we ask our own inner teacher for the answers, then we're going to be hearing the voice for the ego all the time. And if it's just like a little kid having to ask always for, what does this mean? What is this? If they think they know, which is what the ego does, the ego thinks it knows already what everything is and what it's for, then it is insulting to it to say, no, I'm not sure I agree with you about what this is, and I'm going to ask a higher authority. It really is a hard thing for me to admit. I just don't know. I don't know everything. And I don't know how to do everything. I don't know what to think about everything. To put myself in a place of being a learner and a listener instead of a doer and a knower, I think is really what Jesus is asking us to do. And just giving up thinking I know what should be done or how things should be is the first step.
Because I mean, just making it even more personal, just sharing, being transparent about myself. I'm in a marriage. It could be something with my wife. As the way that this world works, this world say, oh, you got to get a counselor, you got to go to therapy, or you got to get this straight with her. And the voice of God within me maybe saying, you both are acting insane. There's nothing to do here. Just let it go. No, what do you mean, let it go? I gotta address this. So I'm insulted. You mean I can't do nothing about this? I'm just supposed to let her off the hook? Yeah, you are. So these are kind of things that will challenge you or me or whoever to almost just turn away from the voice, turn away from the course. There's like, it's just getting, I need to handle this. This is not something, because that's what the ego does. It makes us feel like, oh, I'm losing something. I'm giving up a part of myself which don't even exist to start with.
Anybody else have any thoughts about that? Sorry, I was distracted for a minute. I was texting Lynn Castaldo. She might come in.
Yeah, I want to say for me, the hardest part, which has been to give up, would be my own self-judgment. And of course, I had a lot of judgment about people and all of that from before, but then I would double it up by judging myself about my judgment of the person or whatever it was, especially if it's like a triangle, like I'm in the middle and there's two people involved and I'm trying to help, which usually just makes things worse. And yeah, little by little, I'm noticing how practicing kindness and patience with myself has been one of the really helpful things that has helped me to become less judgmental of others. And even when I noticed, like even today, I wasn't sure. I'm visiting at my sister's house and with my mom, and the way that she does her own things, which is sort of totally different. I mean, she's even have judgments about me, and she would call me, "Oh, you're weird" or something. And I've had situations like that with her where now I just let her be who she is. It doesn't really matter. So if something happened and my mind starts to go into a judgment, but I'm beginning to notice it now that, oh, okay, now I'm beginning to feel bad that I said this, I shouldn't have said this and whatever. And then I just leave it. I just see it and I just say, okay, it's all right. If there's something to fix, Holy Spirit, if I need to go back and readjust, you show me the way. If not, I will just be forgiving to myself and just let it go. And, it's a gradual unlearning of really self-sabotage, which was very huge in me. And I have learned a lot of that through discussing and, with the Course in Miracles and being with you guys and noticing, like I love when Dove said to me a few weeks ago, that whatever I was thinking about the other person, it's like I was attacking them, And I sure don't want to do that. So by just being aware of what's happening with the thought system, that was very helpful. So thank you all.
Thank you, Corinne. Anybody else have any comments? Yeah, this is, it reminds me of back on the characteristic of God's teachers when we were reading about trust. And it said, you know, the final step in trust might take a very long time. And you have to figure out that all the sorting that you've done before had no meaning, that you didn't even know the difference between what was valuable and what was valueless. And that now is a time that you have to come up to, must come into a state that may take a very long time to get to. And that was a state where you gave up all judgment and you ask at every moment, what do I really want? So that's really, I think, what he's talking about here is, you know, we have to give up all judgment, thinking that we know what is right and wrong and what should be done or not. And he he says right there, give up your own judgment and ask the Holy Spirit at every moment instead of my own self. And I mean, it sounds so simple. And I think it's the absolute key to, you know, inner peace and salvation. But it's not so easy. Anybody else have any comments? Please unmute your mic and speak if you want. Okay, do we want to go on? Go ahead.
I also want to say I really love that part about I must have decided wrongly because I'm not at peace. Yeah, that's a very helpful part in the text also. And then it shows you how to get back to peace once you've lost it. So there's just a lot of rich teachings in there. Yeah.
Yeah. You have like all sorts of little things to remind you. And, you know, to get to the point where when I'm feeling not at peace, that's my reminder. Like the minute I feel like I'm upset about something, that's my reminder to look for the truth or ask to be shown, you know, what is really happening here. All right, do we want to go on to start the next section? We have about 15 minutes. So we can read the first paragraph of how is judgment relinquished? Because that is, you know, basically what we're doing. We're trying to figure out how to relinquish judgment. So Jesus is going to give us some instructions in that. Anybody want to read paragraph 1? I'm looking at you, Corinne.
I can read, but I don't know. Can you hear noise? Because there's a thing making noise here. Is it interfering?
No, here. When I mute my...
On my end? Okay, I'll try. Judgment, like other devices by which the world of illusions is maintained, is totally misunderstood by the world. It is actually confused with wisdom and substitutes for truth. As the world uses the term, an individual is capable of good and bad judgment, and his education aims at strengthening the former and minimizing the latter. There is, however, considerable confusion about what these categories mean. What is good judgment to one is, quote, bad judgment to another. Further, even the same person classifies the same action as showing good judgment at one time and bad judgment at another time. Nor can any consistent criteria for determining what these categories are, well, are be really taught. Let me start again. Number 7. nor can any consistent criteria for determining what these categories are be really taught. Okay. At any time, the student may disagree with what his would-be teacher says about them, and the teacher himself may be, well, inconsistent in what he believes. Quote, good judgment in these terms does not mean anything. No more does bad. Yeah. In other words, good and bad, you know, it's all judgment, right? So whatever I think about this is a situation is a bad situation and you don't see it, you see it as a good situation. Neither is true anyway to begin with. So it's just learning to look at it differently because it has so many different, you know, whatever the people that come when you have a bunch of people together and they will all bring their own values and their own things to the judgment, I mean, to the description. So yeah, it can become quite confusing, yeah.
Anybody else have any comments? This is really, you know, I think this is very true. I see this myself. That I mean, he's perfectly clear here. Sometimes you think, you know, it's good that we, you know, killed those, you know, mass murderers, but it's bad that they murdered people. It's good. We have all sorts of things that are, it's good at one point and bad at another point, and it's all depends on you know, your point of view about things. I see it happening all the time, and I found myself even becoming more and more sort of confused in the world because what I notice is that, especially like in the last year or so, when there's been, I'm just copying the text so I can paste it in the Pal Talk room, that there was so much political angst going on in the country, and I was like very unhappy and angry, and you know, I had a lot of judgments about, you know, people that had different ideas than me. And then when I really started looking at it with the Holy Spirit, I came to recognize that what I was accusing them of, they were accusing me of. I was operating out of fear, and they were operating out of fear. I thought what they were proposing was the worst thing that could ever be imagined. They thought what I was proposing was the worst thing that could ever be imagined. And when you looked at it either way, you know, everybody was just trying to, you know, be safe and be right and have their own idea be, you know, what everybody else accepted. All I'm saying is I was doing the same thing. You know, I thought they were, I thought a lot of people were saying and doing a lot of crazy things, but in my mind, I was having the same kind of thoughts, the same kind of angry, murderous, fearful thoughts about them as they were having about me and my point of view. And, you know, I could say, well, yeah, but I was right. You know, I was thinking about good things for people, but they're going to say the same thing. I was right, and I was thinking about good things for people. Because when you talk to them, they have a perfectly logical, to them, point of view. So, you know, when I realized that neither one of us was right, because we were both looking at the world as if something terrible could really happen, and that real things could be attacked, and that, you know, I mean, I was just seeing things completely backwards from reality. Anyway, that was just my experience. And once I saw that we were both doing the same thing, and we were both just terrified of each other, I decided I didn't want to be a scary person anymore. So I quit attacking them. Anybody else have any thoughts? I mean, do you have ideas of what he's talking about? what we think is good, other people think is bad, and who's right.
I have a small example at my sister's house here. She has someone that she's allowed to be in the house for a while with her. It's a woman who's kind of temporarily living here. And she lent her her car keys yesterday. And then she traveled because I'm here with mom now. She took the time while I'm here to travel to New York and go see her family. So she's not here now. And today she decided that she's not letting the lady borrow her car while she's not here. And I found myself kind of uncomfortable because the woman wanted to borrow the car. And I'm the one who's here now because I took her to the airport and came home with the car, and I really felt uncomfortable with that. But then, thank God for A Course in Miracles, because I really said, well, this is really not mine. And if, even if my sister appears to be inconsistent, which is what I was discussing earlier with my brother. And then we had that little discussion when my brother came to visit. And then later on, as I was doing dishes, a lot of times when I'm with the water doing dishes, I start thinking about these things. And I'm like, well, when have I not been consistent? I'm sure plenty of times, that I have not been consistent, I mean, even if it's in the past, with my children, maybe sometimes I'll say yes for something and sometimes I'll say no. So I could see that that judgment was just like a leftover, unforgiveness in my own self about my being inconsistent. So I always try to bring it back to me, which is the practice, which is helping me to become, a little bit easier on myself. So I'm just seeing that it's true. More and more I'm discovering that it's true. It's always about me. And yeah, so I just wanted to share that because it happened today. So it's still happening.
Yeah, I mean, common sense would say, well, if she could use the car when she was there, why couldn't she use the car now? What's different here? But, it's not your choice because your sister made her wishes clear. But you still feel guilty, is what I'm hearing. You still feel badly because you have to say no, even though it's really not up to you.
Well, I felt uncomfortable. Yeah, I felt uncomfortable, but yeah, but not for long. I mean, I let it go, and then I'm thinking the other person is an adult also, and she's relying on my sister's car, and she's also, I mean, she's someone that can be self-sufficient. So maybe I kind of entertain in my mind that maybe this is a growing opportunity for her too. I really don't know. I don't know what anything is for, and so I cannot judge.
Yeah, and that's the best way to look at it too, because if you try to make up a story in your mind that, oh, this is better for her because of this, then you're just lying to yourself. You don't know. So, it might be the worst thing ever for her. And she might think, oh my God, I have to, go find myself another car. Who knows? It's not up to you. It's not your business. I guess that's it, like Byron Katie says, it's either my business, God's business, or somebody else's business. And if it's not my business, it's either God's or somebody else. So I don't, why should I feel responsible for it? Yeah, but I know you did. I know you did, Phil. Yeah. That's what we have to look at. Or when we get that feeling, where did that come from? And how reasonable is it for me to even entertain it for a minute? I do not know. Anybody else have anything they'd like to share? Okay. Well, there's quite a bit more of this. I think we're probably going to end up finishing up next week. how is judgment relinquished? I do think it'd be kind of good there for maybe this throughout the week to maybe spend some time thinking, I'm going to do it. Spend some time thinking about when I've thought what was good judgment or what is bad judgment, and my evaluations of, you know, basically what I see, because I'm always judging everything I see and making up a story about whether I agree with it or not. So that's what I'm going to be doing, I think. Anybody else have anything they'd like to say? You can just mute your mic. Well, if not, I'm going to stop the share so we can actually see each other. And I guess Grace probably had to go to sleep. I don't know what time it is in Norway right now, but it's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sure that's, it was sweet of her to come in. Anyway, and welcome again. I'm sorry, I forgot your name already. What is it? Unmute yourself.
Oh, it's Katrina. You can call me Kat. Yeah, I don't know why it's showing up as K-War, and I'll try and change that.
Oh, it's okay. I thought it was Katrina, and then I was thinking,
Okay.
is it Katrina or, you know?
I wouldn't have remembered. I have a terrible memory.
I like that name though. So
Thank you.
all right. Thanks you guys, everybody, for coming in tonight.
Thank you. It's very helpful.
Good to see you. Welcome back next week, Thursday evening, and maybe we'll finish up that section and have have a great.
Thanks, everyone.
I love
Bye.
you guys.
Thank
Good night.
you.
Namaste.
Bye. Namaste.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.